ground that's believed to contain uranium has collapsed into the Detroit River. We talked to the reporter that broke the story, Dave Battigello from the Windsor Star. And then, a roundup of what to know and where to go around town on today's Daily Detroit. It's Thursday, December 5th, 2019. I'm Jer Stays, and well, let's dive right in. At some point over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, a portion of riverbank near Fort Wayne collapsed into the Detroit River. That riverbank is believed to contain material left over from the Manhattan Project. If you remember, that was a national effort to create the atomic bomb during World War II. And the company on that land extruded uranium rods into the 1950s for nuclear development. To talk about it is Dave Battigello from the Windsor Star. Dave, what exactly happened over there near Fort Wayne?
From my understanding, from all the information I've received, is that there was Detroit Bulk Storage is the company, and they leased the property there. The property is not owned by Manny Maroon. A lot of people seem to think it is, but it's owned by a Grand Rapids company called Erickson Group. So Detroit Bulk Storage moved in there in July. They've been storing what's called aggregate or gravel on the site since that time. The night before, as I'm learning today, the night before Thanksgiving, they had quite a sizable pile on the property from a ship that just dropped it off. That night, there was a lot of rainfall. The river is high as it is, according to the owner. The gravel was stored about 100 feet from the shore, and then the shore started to give away. It broke out into the water, and all of the aggregate or gravel that was being stored near the shore has fallen into the river.
Well, and that gravel could contain contaminants, right? Because this used to be the old Revere copper site.
Yeah, it's not the actual gravel that would be contaminated, but it's the ground itself.
Okay.
It used to be the former Revere copper site, which people, as I'm learning just yesterday myself, that site, the Revere Copper was involved in what's known as the Manhattan Project, the race to build the first atomic bomb. The company back in the 1940s was subcontracted to be part of that, and they constructed what's known as uranium rods. They started that in the 40s and continued to construct uranium rods well into the mid-1950s before they stopped, likely for safety reasons. The property was abandoned in the 80s, so there's been soil checks, but nothing really of any recent time. Dating back to perhaps the 90s was the most recent check. But anytime you're dealing with uranium, there's like chance that it was in the soil, which might have been fine, but now the soil is broken away and into the river.
It's kind of scary if you think about it, because I don't think we think about these kind of things in Detroit per se, because especially I think a lot of people don't realize that we have connections to the Manhattan Project.
I certainly didn't, and I don't think many people would be aware of that given the history of time or the passage of time. But here's a company that was in Detroit, involved in the development of the atomic bomb, played a role in producing parts for the bomb for quite a lengthy period of time. But unfortunately, that production now is maybe causing an issue given that the shore is breaking away here and into the river.
So do you have any idea of what's next or what to look forward to in this saga?
Well, everybody's just kind of cluing in right now, and they're all on the phone today to try to figure out a strategy how to deal with this. Detroit Bulk Storage is the company involved here. I spoke with the owner, and I don't think he really grasped himself the history of the site. He's in the gravel business and didn't seem to have a strong hold on the history and what was actually in the ground beneath him. And he's learning that today. Eagle, as your environmental agency is known, is on the phone trying to get investigators to the site and develop a strategy in terms of how to deal, one, with the ground broken and the river washing up on it, two, deal with the aggregate that's fallen into the river and how big of a problem all of this is.
The site has been listed by the Wall Street Journal as one of America's forgotten nuclear wastelands. The danger here is in what's in the ground that we've talked about, but also the sediment nearby, as the Detroit River's bottom has a variety of chemicals left over from industry like mercury and PCBs. Left alone and in place, it's not as much of a danger, but disturb it and disperse it, and it could be a different story. In fact, this particular site was being considered for the new Gordie Howe Bridge, but environmental concerns put the brakes on that idea. And here's the cherry on top. According to maps we were able to find, downriver from the site are a couple of water intakes, one at Wyandotte and another near Fighting Island. We'll all keep an eye on the story, and you can follow Dave from the Star on Twitter at Dave Battigello, and that's with 2 T's and 2 L's. There's a new development in the case of the slain Detroit police officer Rasheen McClain. If you remember, he was killed on November 20th, and his partner, Philippe Batum-Bis, was wounded in the leg. 28-year-old Jujuan Parks was arraigned Thursday in 36th District Court on 16 felony charges. Included in the bucket is first-degree premeditated murder. He will await trial in the Wayne County Jail with no bond, with proceedings scheduled to start December 19th. Layoffs with the opportunity to work at other plants have been made at the Detroit Hamtramck GM facility as it retools for new electric products. 814 hourly and salaried employees will be affected, and the layoffs will begin at the end of February 2020. More than 750 workers are covered by the UAW and have bumping rights to other plants per their collective bargaining agreement, but those rights do not extend to the retooled plant. Detroit Hamtramck will build all electric trucks and vans, though there isn't a specific product designed yet. GM says that there will be about 2,225 jobs there after the $3 billion investment is done. Related is an announcement of a joint venture with LG Chem to put $2.3 billion into a new electric battery plant in Lordstown, Ohio. General Motors, in multiple interviews, says that the company is preparing for an all-electric future. There's something that I saw that I find kind of interesting, mostly because of the timing. If you remember on yesterday's show, we talked about Buddy's opening and Kid Rock pulling out of his licensing deal at Little Caesars Arena. The Metro Times is now reporting that Kid Rock announcement came the same day as a racial discrimination lawsuit by a former black bartender was settled for an undisclosed sum. According to the suit, she alleged she was fired for wearing an afro. The restaurant, although it was licensed by Rock, is operated by Delaware North, the national food service company that runs many of the concepts in the arena. The new center saw its largest residential project in years open their doors Thursday. The Boulevard is a 6-story, 356,000 square foot mixed-use development at 3rd Avenue and West Grand Boulevard in the city. That's on the next block from the Fisher Building. There are going to be retail spots like Orange Theory Fitness, Beyond Juice, and a Comerica Bank branch. Upstairs, there will be 231 studio, 1- and 2-bedroom apartments that range in size from just over 500 square feet to more than 1,100 square feet. And 20% of the units will be affordable housing for those making 80% of the average median income in the region. The total price tag on the development, including a 330-space parking structure, is said to be $60 million. In the suburbs, the Wilcox Mill in Plymouth and the Newburgh Mill site in Livonia just took a big step toward being redeveloped. The Wayne County Commission approved the sale of the properties for a total of $765,000 and approved an agreement to acquire nearly 17 acres in Westland to add to Hines Park. The sold properties will be part of the Mill Run placemaking project. So what are the plans for these? Wilcox Mill was bought by Mill on Rouge, and that was created by well-known local artist Tony Rocco and the Art Foundation. They plan to rehab the building into an art education space and construct a publicly accessible inner child sculpture garden that displays 3-dimensional realizations of children's drawings. Local developer Richard Cox will renovate the Newburgh Mill into a distillery with retail space and a park that's shaped like a spiral, inspired by the automotive parts once made on the site. Cox has a track record, including turning the Northville Mill into modern office space. He also purchased Phoenix Mill in Plymouth Township and is turning that property into an event facility with public green spaces. The county will get first right of refusal under the deal to repurchase the properties if the new owners decide to ever sell them in the future. And there's a bit of neat history to these buildings and land. Wilcox and Newburgh Mills, as well as the Phoenix Mill and Nankin Mills, were part of the Ford Village Industries network of part factories located along the Middle Rouge River. They were deeded to the county by Ford Motor Company in 1948. Nankin Mills remains with Wayne County. It houses the Parks Division's offices and an interpretive center. It just went through an $800,000 rehab. And before I let you go, I wanted to give you the heads up that the Detroit Urban Craft Fair is this weekend at the Masonic Temple. It runs Friday through Sunday, so you can pack in Noel Night and the craft fair if you're feeling adventurous and motivated this weekend. More than 100 artists will be there for the 14th edition of the celebration of independent and unique arts. And I've been a few times, I can tell you, they're definitely unique. If you want to know more, you can check that out at DetroitUrbanCraftFair.com, and I'll put a link in the show notes. All right, that'll do it for today's show. A reminder that Daily Detroit is people-powered, so there are 3 ways to help if you can. First, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We got a new 5-star one, so thanks so much. Second, tell a friend about the show. The more people who know about Daily Detroit and how we push Detroit's conversation forward, the better. And third, if you can, and only if you can, we'll always be free to access, but becoming a member helps. Membership matters, and it helps pay for all of this. You can join those cool people for just a few bucks a month at patreon.com/join. That's patreon.com/join. And you'll also get exclusive updates and first looks at new stuff before we roll it out to everyone else. With that, I'm Jared Stays. Take care of each other, and I'll see you around Detroit.